I am Anastasia Logotheti, and that the Deree and the Teaching and Learning Center is one of the connections to ALN, and it is a great pleasure for me to be again in an ALN festival as I was last year. So we're going to be looking at something that is very much a hot topic in 2023. I think things have subsided a little bit, but maybe only because there is a certain fatigue around things AI, and because things are getting so complicated with AI that it is really truly difficult to follow up on development. So I'm going to put in the chat a link to this Padlet, which is a Padlet that I have been using since last year. In fact, collecting, and you're going to see already quite a lot, and you can also scan the QR code on your screen or use the link that I've put in the chat. And you will see that there are already a lot of reactions from previous presentations, both from last year's ALN Festival as well as this last summer's annual conference, ALN conference. So various reactions, and it is precisely these reactions that we're interested in exploring again today. How do you feel? We're now nearly a year and a half since ChatGPT and all the other Gen AI tools, but also broadly speaking, AI has began featuring in our academic lives. What have been your experiences? How do you think AI affects student performances? Do we become empowered, or are we simply the victims of a lot more breaches of academic integrity? Academic integrity, one of the things that we're going to be touching on today. I would very much like to invite you to contribute through the chat, but also through the Padlet, as well as moments when we're going to stop our discussion and try to see what contributions you would like to make. So a rough outline of the things that we're going to touch on, and one of the terms that we've been thinking more about is what is known as critical AI literacy. Not just knowing, not just using the tools, but actually being able to critically assess and understand both the benefits, enhancements, as well as the potential dangers. It is a disclaimer that I've been making in every single discussion that I've been leading on AI, that there is hardly anyone that could claim expertise in this area. We are all slowly becoming more AI literate, and we're all developing our critical AI literacy skills. We have been for a long time concerned with what has become, the synonym of Gen AI tools, ChatGPT. But the truth is that AI is now becoming so ubiquitous that it is becoming even broader than what generally we call Gen AI. So I will make a small introduction there. I'll tell you about some opinions that resonate with me, both from scholars and educators, and then we're going to try to look at our experiences. What does it mean to have GI in the classroom? What concerns do we have connected to academic integrity, as well as AI writing detectors, and how we feel about assessment in the age of AI, with a short-term suggestion that I'm going to be making about the return of some traditional methods of assessment, as well as absolutely the need for us to rethink assessment practices in the long term. So I hope you will be contributing your own point of view. First, a small introduction. Nobody would think of AI, even the more positive thinkers, but also think of them in terms of a disruption that is massive, and the way that these, especially Gen AI tools, work offer us a sense of authenticity, which is fake. There is a quote there by the American educator, Christopher Deree, who has given us one of the nice metaphors, a brain without a mind, very similar to the stochastic parrot. That was the very first metaphor we had from Emily Bender, one of the linguists that has worked a lot on the possible dangers, and was the first, way before ChatGPT was openly released, to caution us for the use of Gen AI. So over the past year, over 2023, I think we all became more cautious and more cognizant in terms of the way that Gen AI tools offer us a false sense of expertise, but actually they do a disingenuous, rather, recycling of information. And yet the idea that they are ultra smart, that they are thinking tools, etc., even new little videos that appear on YouTube by so-called experts. I was watching one yesterday, uploaded, and after the first 5 minutes, I gave up. Because the metaphor that was used is that having your Gen AI at your fingertips is like having Einstein in your basement. And I thought, well, this is where I exit. Nothing about Gen AI could compare to having an original and powerful thinker. So although there's been a lot of discussion about moving toward what is known as artificial general intelligence, we're nowhere there at all. And one of the things that I think is being foregrounded more after all the different lawsuits and strikes and open letters by scientists as well as creative artists about the lack of authenticity and the danger this poses, especially to creativity. Another thing that is slowly beginning to be more foregrounded, and you see a link to a New Republic article called "The Scariest Part of AI," which is an article that came out this month, has to do with the incredible energy and environmental impact of Gen AI tools. So Gen AI tools are neither the solution to generating text nor what the companies that promote them would like us to think. Some scholarship and thoughts that have come to us, for instance, you see the conclusion of this particular paper submitted back in September about large language models, the science behind ChatGPT and Gen AI. And the conclusion to this is, we conclude that we should not evaluate LLMs as if they are humans, but should instead treat them as a distinct type of system, one that has been shaped by its particular set of pressures. So there's no doubt that in academia and those who are actually experts in terms of the science behind this there is a lot of skepticism. Similarly, there is skepticism among philosophers, theorists, literary critics. I have a couple of papers recently published by one of the well-known theorists, Catherine Hales, who deals very much with artificial intelligence. One of them is called Inside the Mind of an AI Materiality, and she talks about the fact that we are dealing with machines that simulate human language, and that it is part of critical AI literacy. The need for us, it will become, and I think Hales is absolutely right, that it will become an essential life skill to understand how algorithms operate and what they can and cannot do. The other two quotes that I have, which have to do with representations and the basic difference between how a child connects language with, of course, context, as opposed to the fact that a large language model and the science behind generative AI tools has to do with the fact that they lack completely reference. So, as she says, there is a systemic fragility of reference in text generated by any text generating program. And imagine that this particular article was also something that refers to ChatGPT-3 earlier models published in 2022, as you can see. A more recent publication by the same scholar, again, juxtaposing the difference between having a model of language versus having a model of the world. And again, making the point of existential differences between speaking from a model of language versus speaking from a model of the world, and how tools like ChatGPT calls the subjectivity of the individual person in question. An understanding of how an AI does not understand the world and is alien to human intuitive know-how, I think, is a necessary premise upon which to actually build our understanding and slowly begin to develop our critical AI literacy. Now, a couple of educators on Gen AI. Here is a writing expert, and Jane Rosenvig is the director of the Harvard College Writing Center, and she feels that we as educators need to be talking to our students about what's happening behind the scenes, that in order for us to build this critical AI literacy for our students, they really need to understand what Gen AI tools are producing, how they are producing it, and also how that output needs to be critiqued, because the more popular ways in which a lot of educators are suggesting that we use the output of generative AI tools is to provide us with brainstorming or give us a first draft, and then critique that or develop that. Things are a lot more complicated, and unless we understand what's happening behind the scenes, it's not going to be easy. One of the well-known educators who is very much in favor of ChatGPT and other tools, Ethan Mollick. He is a business professor, but also has an absolutely wonderful blog. He offers quite a balanced view. His blog is called oneusefulthing.org. You can see on the screen the URL. And he makes much of something that so far evidence suggests that low performance can be enhanced through AI tools, but the particular title, Centaurs and Cyborgs, refers to what he considers to be the people who make top-end use of these tools rather than improving low-level performers. And of course, the big challenge is how we're going to make sure that we maintain that basic foundational knowledge so that even the low performers, when they use AI tools, they have some critical AI literacy. You also see an image, one of the nice slogans from the screenwriters, that very famous, now finished strike of last year, leave AI to sci-fi. This is wishful thinking. This is not going to happen. The genie will not go back in the box. We really need to consider the ramifications of AI for higher education as educators, but also for the world at large. So let's see if we can pause now. I will have a look at the Padlet, but I would also very much like to invite you to contribute if you want. We have a nice crowd. I see now that from the moment that we started, we have about 50 people with us. So I think if anybody would like to unmute, raise their hand, participate. I see some really nice contributions on the Padlet. One it has to do with the environmental impact that I mentioned, and somebody has also contributed about generated student scripts. So again, I would very much like to invite you to share further. The Padlet link is in the chat. I'm sure you can find it, but also if you would like to unmute, let's see if we have anybody that would like. I'll put the link again. So let me see if I can send you the link. So you now have the link again in the chat. Thank you for this, Janet. So let's move forward. The part that is coming now has to do with closer links to our experience and very much connected to assessment after this general introduction. So what are our concerns? Things are getting very complicated because Gen AI tools are not just chatbots like ChatGPT, but we also have translators, paraphrasers, and all kinds of apps or platforms like Grammarly that pre-existed and that have now become AI enhanced. What do we think the effect has been on unsupervised assessment methods, on coursework? Do our students have the same appreciation of writing, of the production of coursework that they used to have, now that you have a tool that can produce something that seems, at least on a basic level, to respond to topics and concerns well? So the more challenged learners, let's say, consider that Gen AI tools produce things that are better than what they would produce if they sat down and responded to questions. How do we ensure that foundational knowledge, that a lot of times is what a Gen AI tools is going to produce, those fundamentals, how do we keep teaching those if our students feel that the machines can produce that? How do we ensure that our students still develop critical thinking skills? AI breaches, of course, breaches of academic integrity, they don't only affect individual courses, they more broadly affect the awards given by an institution of higher learning. They even undermine institutional validity. And what is going to happen in the professional world a couple of years down the line, let's say, is something that we still don't know. It certainly has not been studied. It hasn't really happened yet when this generation of AI users is going to go out into the market. So one of the things that seemed to offer as a possibility was to use AI to check up on AI. So it seemed that we could have AI tools to tell us whether whether the writing of our students was actually written by AI, the degree to which it was written by AI, and so on and so forth. There are very few things that studies agree on, but one of the things that they all agree on, and we now have some very, very good research, is that these AI writing detectors do not work. They are not safe as the only criterion upon which to judge the originality of a student's work. They create a lot of false positives. They seem to be biased against non-native speakers. And one of the better studies came right at the end of 2023, in December of 2023, and you see the URL there, and later, if you want, I can put that in the chat. So we know that ultimately they are unreliable. This is one of the things that came out of a post from the National Center for AI, even back in September. The bias was tested and proven back in July of 2023, and even one of the UK experts, Dr. Robin Crockett, has written very convincing posts on testing AI detectors, and he has very well explained the science behind the inability of these detectors to really give us fail-safe results. This has led to a lot of institutions, and you see there 3 examples from 3 different well-established US institutions, NYU, Vanderbilt. They both disabled the Turnitin AI detector. That tool was first introduced to paying subscribers to Turnitin back in April. Promoted, it was free at the time, promoted as an incredible breakthrough and something that could be used safely. We very quickly saw that there were a lot of problems, and that meant that when the fall semester began, institutions like Vanderbilt and NYU disabled the AI tool in Turnitin, or, and this is the example from Yale that you see at the bottom of your screen, they very, very strongly recommended against the use of an AI detector. And there are such more subtle or nuanced responses rather than disabling the tool in a variety of other US institutions. Now, we really have a dilemma. There are certain institutions, my own institution, for instance, has continued, and since January, the AI detector in Turnitin is now a paid subscription. So we're actually now paying a fee for a service that is unreliable. So our institution has continued this. We, in my mind, should not be resorting to an outside source checking for the authenticity of our student writers. I consider that the best detector of the authenticity of student writing is the instructor. And we certainly have ways in which we as instructors can put in place certain things that will let us know what our student writing is like. It would be nice if you have any suggestions. It would be nice if you put these in the Padlet. I'm going to give you some suggestions myself. And of course, the reactions to how to detect AI writing very much relates to our disciplinary perspective, but also very much the level and kind of course that we engage with. So we can pause again. I'm going to check the chat, and we have a very nice contribution about from somebody. Kathy, thank you. I don't know which institution you represent. You're saying they're not using one. This is becoming the more popular perspective, and someone else is also saying that they agree. So it's good to hear actually that more and more institutions are stopping the use, are disabling or discouraging instructors because a lot of really terrible mistakes can be made. I'll take a look at the Padlet, and I see a lot of very nice reactions and contributions. This is absolutely wonderful. All the newer contributions are coming on top. I will share my screen later. For now, I hope you are actually seeing both the chat and the Padlet and contributing to that. Let me come to the third part of the presentation and now talk about assessment. First, by reminding all of us some of the basics. These are things we know that what we always want is that our assessments, whatever they are fit for purpose, as we say. So they are suitable to the learning objective or the learning outcome we are testing. And you also see a kind of grouping of assessment types, synchronous versus asynchronous, in person and in real time versus remote, asynchronous, take home, open book, invigilated or non-invigilated, handwritten if it is, of course, produced in an exam style situation, or typed if it can be done at home. And of course, we also have the difference between oral forms of assessment versus written production in terms of assessment. So we have many different kinds, but we always want these to be fit for purpose. So when we have a possible short-term resorting back to some forms of assessment that we've kind of forgotten. For instance, timed assessments. One of the things that we know is that timed assessments tend to be more popular as testing kinds of assessments rather than assessments of learning. And we tend to think of these timed assessments and focusing more on knowledge and understanding and less on critical thinking. And overall, what we've moved toward is that we tend to have one or two summative assessments in our coursework, and that they tend to be more challenging because we're interested in developing critical skills in our students. We are interested in seeing the critical thinking of our students. We don't simply want to test them on knowledge. So these are things that are well established in the literature. They are part of our own assessments. So how do we begin to think in terms of in-class writing, introducing, and that is something that I have tested and piloted in the fall of 2023, by reintroducing in-class writing, brief and very, very specific and very, very focused, as a way of getting students to become reacquainted with the need for engagement with material that can happen within 5 to 8 minutes and can have a critical response. The experiments that I ran in the fall semester in 2 upper-level, senior-level seminars, one on Shakespeare, one on Victorian literature, actually were quite successful. Students produced throughout the semester approximately 6 in each of the 2 classes, 6 writing, 6 short writing assignments between 5 to 10 minutes. I would collect these handwritten, of course, written in class on the material of the day. A couple of these were actually by giving them a Padlet and having them type in some thoughts, but mostly they were handwritten, and they went quite well once the students overcame their surprise, having, of course, discussed with them why we are trying to get them to become more engaged with the day's material, etc. But certainly they found this to be quite strange. It also meant that I had to allocate this time. I had to stop the class. I had to get the students to do the writing on the spot. Some students reacted to this. They felt that it might influence broadly their performance if the response was not very good. Of course, all the tasks were low stakes tasks, questions that related to the day's material, and of course this is a short-term solution. Now, the benefits of this is that with these short assignments, I had a sense of the writing. No matter how informal, no matter how quick, I had a sense of the writing of each of the students in the class. So when I looked at their 3,500 word research project, it was easier for me to see where some of the weaker writers might have used AI to generate some ideas. And this gave me an opportunity to talk to them using, of course, their in-class writing always in a very, very positive way, to try to empower them and say, look, look what you did in class. You were very capable of responding to this question. Why did you feel the need, etc., etc. So overall, my experience was very positive, but it definitely affected the class in terms of time. As I said, it took some time for the students to get used or feel that this was a useful activity. So the first half of the semester, it took a lot more convincing, a lot more discussion in terms of the validity or the usefulness of this activity. By the time, as I said, they did 6 spread out throughout the semester, they certainly had warmed up to this idea, and a couple of them actually felt and voiced their appreciation of this, and they said, I have become a lot better at home at getting myself to start writing because I know I can do something, even a page in the 5 minutes you give us. So I try to convince myself to do something similar at home. So overall, I would say that for a short-term solution, this definitely was not an idea that might have its pluses and minuses, but overall not a bad idea, and certainly something that I would suggest. What is currently happening is that scholars are trying to come up with what is now known as an AI assessment scale for ethical Gen AI assessment. The AIAS, you see here, this is a suggestion that exists as a preprint at this point, but it also gives us the gamut of possibilities, from telling students you absolutely are not going to use any AI, to, as you see, stages of using AI for idea generation and structuring, AI-assisted editing, AI task completion, to full use of AI. So there is a scale now being developed in terms of how we think of assessment. Are we going to allow AI use? To which extent? It is early days, and certainly I want to emphasize again the need for a distinction made in terms of disciplinary perspective, but certainly we're moving towards a more nuanced attitude towards using and certainly not abusing AI in assessment. So I think the challenge is for all of us to rethink assessment and to consider how we're going to try to not sacrifice aspects of coursework that are important, and to ensure that we still expect a process of thinking and development, and possibly, and this is the thing that I am testing this semester, less in-class writing and more formative steps. Again, there are pros and cons. We can discuss them, to look at not just the product, but also give great importance to process. So my effort this semester is to try to balance some of the more in-class, real-time. I'm teaching 2 other classes this semester. There are exams actually in both of those. But the coursework is incredibly important, and those formative steps that I've put in place and trying to get students to really commit to looking at the process as being very, very important. And of course, on my part, give the feedback that would make the process a meaningful experience. So I'm hoping that this is something that will work well this semester. I think it is time for us to really discuss, look at the Padlet, ask for your contributions. I see a lot more things happening in the chat. I'll stop sharing now. Maybe I can share the Padlet, but first let's see what contributions people would want to make. I'll check the chat, and I'm hoping some of you will want to contribute as well. Certainly, students with challenges. I'm looking at one of the comments in the chat. Students that have accommodations. Yes, these are definitely aspects that we need to consider, no doubt about it. And certainly also the possibility of using also oral contributions, making the class as dialogic as possible, as discursive as possible, absolutely. I also appreciate the comment about spelling. This is one of the battles I have had to wage. I'm not sure if I've won the war yet, but I've constantly been needing to convince my students that I don't pay attention to spelling. And I mean that not for those who have declared dyslexia and are actually getting accommodations, but even for those who are very concerned about the correctness of the responses when they're writing in class. This is one of the things that we as instructors need to realize, that we need to set the students at rest, that we're not going to be looking at such more superficial aspects of expression, and that we're really interested in them engaging with the ideas without worrying about expression in these quick in-class or oral contributions. So somebody is again asking for the Padlet link. Thank you for putting it in. And the question of course, the how authentic a written exam can be. Certainly, exams are not fit for all kinds of assessments, and we need to think what we would produce under time conditions, and be very understanding about what our students are submitting, for sure. Claire, thank you for suggesting that that sense of correctness also has to do with confidence. For a very long time, we really used to think that maybe those that are non-native speakers or have less fluency in a language are compromised in terms of ideas as well. I'm hoping that we've moved beyond that, and sometimes when some of these less articulate students are given an opportunity to express their thoughts even in a less correct grammatically manner, they feel more empowered, and sometimes you can have that reaction as well. The dependence on the discipline, absolutely, because you do have disciplines that require a lot more knowledge. This is all for me from now, but please let me know if we can discuss further, or any contributions.